Dark Souls is a pretty intense franchise, as are its fans. I'm Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 crazy things Dark Souls players have done. Number 10, Shrek. In Dark Souls, a team of 3 created characters reminiscent of various Shrek characters, including Donkey and Puss in Boots, and hung out trying to get people to just sit in the swamp. Most people did not sit in the swamp, though. Most people battled them. Unfortunately for them, Shrek was pretty good at Dark Souls. For the most part, Shrek pretty much beat the crap out of everybody that challenged him, with a very large club, might I add. In the video of footage of this encounter, some funnier moments happen, where Puss in Boots and Donkey ambush someone, and finally somebody does sit down in the swamp with them. True peace is achieved. Number 9, somebody cheating at Dark Souls 3 streamed themselves cheating and didn't get banned. Not just that they didn't get banned, but they claimed to be able to soft ban people themselves. If you're unaware, the way that works, in Dark Souls 3, there is a soft ban pool, which is people who have been banned. They can't interact with people who have not been banned, but they're still able to interact with each other. It's basically a wretched hive of scum and villainy, but there's not really any evidence they were able to do that. They were just claiming they could. Still, they were able to cheat for hours and hours, which implies that at least around the time this went down, there was just not a lot being done about cheating. It has gotten a little bit better since then, and you see the conversation crop up quite a bit less. And perhaps this was a reason why they actually got their butts in gear, but keep in mind, it's still not perfect. Number 8, a leatherwork artist on DeviantArt, going by Asmal, made a full suit of leather armor inspired by Artorias, and it is amazing. It's interesting because the fact that it is leather actually makes it look a little bit cooler, if that makes sense. It still manages to look like metal in a lot of places, but because it's not just ridiculously shiny, as some reproductions of armor are, it looks a little more real. Good lord, it is awesome. Just crazy attention to detail. Number 7, a comic artist going by Dark Luster Comics created a Dark Souls action comic with a ton of really cool looking stuff in it. In fact, they've done a ton of Dark Souls art, usually with very minimal color work, and that sort of simplistic color scheme of reds or tans in select places really makes it look incredible. I mean, it's absolutely wild that there are people out there that do stuff on this level and just have nothing actually to do with the comics industry. They just love what they do and they're very good at it. Check them out. Their stuff's really, really good. They've got a Patreon, and if you're into comics, I would definitely say somebody to look into. Number 6, sometimes people go out of their way to make film versions of the Dark Souls games using the Dark Souls games. Now, more than a few people have done this, but some are a lot better than others. For instance, Moonlight Butterfly on YouTube clearly knows what they're doing with video editing, because using some camera hacks, enlisting the help of other people who are playing along with them via online play, and just generally being good at what they did, they've created a bunch of pretty much watchable films out of in-game dialogue and events. Crazy cinematic, right? Number 5, somebody spent 10 months reverse engineering Dark Souls, creating an artificial intelligence that was extremely good at battling. They called it the King, and the King is pretty awesome. If you watch video of people attempting to beat the King plays like a professional. Now, the King isn't invulnerable. It's possible to beat the King. In fact, I've seen a couple of people post videos beating the King. They actually use Cheat Engine to do this. Obviously, you can't just get the source code to the game. From Software owns that and hasn't made it open source. So Cheat Engine can kind of be used to do that through debugging and scanning the memory and just generally using the data that you get from that to build a script that can run a fairly potent, powerful AI opponent. It's frankly a crazy amount of dedication because it's not even the most recent Dark Souls game. It wasn't when it was made, but that certainly doesn't mean it's not awesome, because it is. At number 4, a dude actually beat the entire Dark Souls series without getting hit. Streamer The Happy Hob basically blew everyone's freaking minds. And I don't mean like played the first one without getting hit, then played the second one without getting hit, then played the third one without getting hit. Obviously he did do that, but if he got hit at any point during any game, he had to return to the beginning of the series. As in, he did the series without getting hit. And one time in Dark Souls 3, he did get hit, and he went back to Dark Souls 1 1 and did the damn thing again. Hidetaka Miyazaki did not believe when he didn't get hit just in the first game back in 2016. And now it's the whole series. And the Happy Hob has streamed all of it. This is not a trick. People watched this happen. That is the coolest shit ever. That is incredible. Number 3, quite a few fans have spent time recreating the mechanics and aesthetics of Dark Souls in the Unreal Engine. A person by the name of Ben Roach recreated some areas of Dark Souls in Unreal Engine totally on his own. Completely modeled all of the assets himself, did not rip them from the game, and it really looks amazing. It's extremely reminiscent of the game itself, and in a lot of cases has nicer lighting effects. Another account recreated the battle system and made a boss in Unreal, and the feedback for it is extremely positive. It's amazing what some people can do with a little dedication. Number 2, there's a Guinness World Record for the most alternative control methods used to complete Dark Souls. It is held by Benjamin Bearsley Gwynn, and he has completed the game with 9 different controllers. He's completed it with a Wii controller. Doesn't seem that weird. He's completed it with a MIDI keyboard. If you understand MIDI keyboards, still something you could probably do. But the Donkey Kong bongos, that's an interesting one. He's also beaten it with the Rock Band guitar, with the Rock Band drums. Now for most of them, he was able to just map the controls using some software, but for the bongos, he had to write his own custom software that interprets what you're doing with the bongos because they don't have enough buttons. It's one of the more insane world records I've ever seen, and it's cool as hell. And finally, number 1, a really old dude is spending his twilight years killing and being killed repeatedly in Dark Souls. His name is Kiyoshika-san. He is from Japan, and he says, if you fear death, this is not a game to play. At 80 years old, at least at the time he was interviewed, he's probably about 82 now. That's a pretty wild game to be playing. I mean, every time you mess up, you have the words "you died" right in your face. As an 80-year-old person, I'd have to imagine that doesn't just require somebody not to fear death, but also requires a bit of a sense of humor. What's the craziest Dark Souls thing you've ever seen? Was it on this list, or is it something you've experienced? Leave us a comment, click like if you enjoyed this video, and if you're not subscribed, now is a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.